All right, let's continue. So I have a few more questions. You're doing a wonderful job of answering, by the way. Okay. Just take a moment to reset. So a couple more questions for you before we wrap up. I know it's a lot of questions. I want to kind of, I'm a Scorpio. You're a Scorpio, so we're going to go a little deeper than what we've been going into.
5 planets Scorpio.
Well, let's see how that unfolds here in the next few questions. Eventually you made your way to the Mayher Spiritual Center.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to hear more about what the Mayher Spiritual Center is in your experience, and what it could be. In what ways is it not manifesting in the ways that it could? Like, in other words, is it holding space for something that could be...
Can we pause for a minute? Can we just... I want to answer the first question because that's a lot. That's like 3 questions you have asked already.
Pause the video or just pause the question stream?
Pause the question stream. So
sure, go ahead.
The first question was...
Go ahead.
Okay, so I first went to the Mayher Spiritual Center when I was 7 because my parents, having had been to India, realized that Meher Baba was really the real deal. And they met, most of his core disciples when they went in 1976. And they were completely blown away. So when they came back, of course, they wanted their children to, know about Baba and have that experience too. And the only trip they could afford with small children, because I was the oldest, so now I'm 7, my brother's 5, and my sister is 3. So we just filled up our truck with gas, and we literally drove from California all the way to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
And for those who don't know, that's a distance of roughly, I'm just going to say roughly 3,000 miles.
We did not have air conditioning in our truck, and so it was another family who had 2 children also under the age of 7. So there was 5 children in the back of this pickup with no air conditioning, just some blankets and a little pile of books and games. And when we got there, being a child and experiencing the center, I was just overjoyed. It was just this giant, free, wild space, with abundance of water and beauty, and we got to stay in this beautiful cabin, and I remember again feeling like I was an angel. I loved the beach and the warm water, and we were there during the summer for our first trip, so I think it's like July. The welcoming staff, I was very much moved, and it was a huge memory, imprinted on my heart. I really felt Baba's love, and I got to meet Kitty and
Kitty Davy.
And a few other of the women who ran the center. I don't have that too much memory at that age, but I specifically remember feeling Baba's presence there. And then we would try to go to Myrtle Beach as often as we could, but I think the next time we went, I was 14. So those were 2 significant ages, actually, 7 and 14, because Baba talks about how we get our first load of karma at 7, and then the second load at 14. And I do remember after that trip, when I was 14, my parents ended up getting divorced, so it was sort of this last moment of being there as a family. But again, it was the same feeling when I was there at 14, that, feeling Baba's presence, his love in my heart. And by that point, I had moved from California to New Mexico, and we were living near Leatrice Johnston, who was Darwin Shaw's daughter. And she had met Baba, and she would talk to us about what it was like to be with Baba.
Sure.
And then we would have discourse meetings regularly. So by then I was reading what Baba had said in the discourses. I was starting to digest more on a conscious level, what that meant to follow Baba.
Yeah, well, I was going to segue into a question around that. Do you feel like there was an age at which you started to follow Baba voluntarily, like associate with him voluntarily, rather than it being the momentum of your parents' journey?
Right. So, I've always had a deep longing to be with Baba. So this having to take him as my master, I think, was you know, it wasn't like a moment like, okay, Vanessa, now you're taking him as you know, your master. I think my heart had always taken him as my master. And I think when I went to India and I was able to have a pilgrimage there where my family could do whatever they wanted and I could do whatever I wanted, because in Maribot it was so sweet and secluded, and you didn't have a lot of the world. It felt like you were having a break from the world, and so I could then cultivate my own desires to either sit in the tomb all day or meet some of the Mandli and go to Marizad. So I think for me, when I first went to India, it was like, okay, how do you want your relationship to Baba to be? Like, yes, you love him undoubtedly from your heart. You feel his love and his unconditional love for you. But, what do you want to do with that in your life? How do you want to carry forward? And of course, then I met you.
Well, that's a whole nother video.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Meher Baba community and the Meher Baba movement. We know that there was no Meher Baba movement before 1894. It's impossible, because Baba was born in 1894. And then, of course, his family, and then his awakening and all that. But now we're, I'm 52, and he's been passed away for 50 years at least, right? So what is the Meher Baba community? Is it's been criticized by some as a cult. What is a cult to you? And are there cult-like things going on, or is this a different sort of community, a different sort of movement? What is this movement, and what's your place in that?
I never really saw it as a movement. I know it's not a cult, although I would say that, if you saw any Baba lover in the West bowing down to a bed or a chair that Baba had sat in, it's going to be looking kind of weird. But, if you're from the East where you bow to, your master, then it's very natural. But
Yeah, I've told people who criticize bowing to a bed, I said, what if you knew that Jesus had slept in that bed? Would you bow down to it? And they changed their answer.
Well, I think my favorite part about being a Baba lover is knowing that, I have nothing to do with somebody, finding Baba or coming to Baba. I might be able to just impart his name, but really, by no effort of my own do they come to Baba. Baba, like, once that seed is planted, Baba grows in their heart, and I don't have to lift a finger.
Didn't he say it's your job to bring my name to somebody's ear?
Yeah.
And my job to bring it from their ear to their heart?
Right. So
we do a part. We play a part.
Right, and now, having lived, you've seen lots of examples, and I have too over the years where, I might have friends from high school or college or whatever that have heard about Baba, but they never, catch on. It's not something that ever really becomes meaningful to them. And then there's other people who, have been striving and seeking their whole life, and they hear Baba's name, and suddenly, they go to India or they find Baba in their heart, and they didn't even have a conversation with me after that. It was like, they just went on their own. They took off like a bullet. But it's so beautiful to see how he manifests in everyone's heart in that unique way.
In his timing.
In his timing.
Well, we're going to wrap this up here soon, so let me open it up even wider. I happen to know that there's some interesting 12-step programs in the world that are helpful, and that you have your own thoughts and feelings about what's good for humanity. Can you talk a little bit about 12-step groups, and can you talk a little bit about, you know, our viewers may never have met you or heard of you. What's some parting wisdom that you could share with them that you would feel that, you know, this is an opportunity for you to share 50 years of research and development? What kind of takeaways do you have from that first part of your life that you could, you know, bestow upon our viewers? What's important?
Again, many questions.
Oh, well, I'm good at that.
Okay, so, you know, I didn't find the 12-step program until and actively become involved until like 2014 or 2015.
And what program is it?
And the program that I found was Al-Anon.
And what is that for viewers who have no idea what that means?
So Al-Anon is a 12-step program for people who either know someone who is an alcoholic, they have a family member who's an alcoholic, a friend, but there's someone, you know, that's in their lives that is an alcoholic. And so it's interesting because, you know, my parents didn't do drugs and they weren't alcoholics, but both sets of my parents had alcoholic parents. So
Grandparents, your grandparents.
my grandparents on both sides were alcoholics, and not just one grandparent, like both.
And that finds its way down the line, doesn't it?
Right. So there's patterns of behavior that are associated with alcoholism. So whether you're drinking or not, there's like generational behaviors and thought patterns. So, you know, I had, of course, grown up with Baba, and I had been to India and had read the discourses, and I was doing my best to be, you know, a good person. And I just found myself, you know, involved with patterns and behaviors and people who, you know, had either been exposed to alcoholism or were alcoholics. And I just was really baffled on how to deal with it. Finding the 12-step program was such a beautiful experience, because when I started to do the steps, it was like, you know, having that background of, you know, Baba's words and his discourses and his inner connection with my heart. It just made all of that come to alive, and I was able to understand, you know, more, with more clarity of mind, what actions I really needed to take on my spiritual path.
So it's practical.
It's incredibly practical. I think, you know, no matter what, you know, path you follow, if it's Buddhism or, you know, if you're, even if you're agnostic, if you follow the 12 steps, you know, it can do nothing but help you towards the goal. And it's universal, so, you know, it was just such a lovely find. And I think I did like a quickening of growth, you know, once I got into the 12-step program, at least on a conscious level. I mean, I think, you know, I had never had any question of my devotion to Baba, and I had followed him with all sincerity. But I was really overjoyed to find the 12-step program and be able to apply with more sincerity and honesty, I think, you know, and awareness.
So speaking of awareness, parting wisdom for our viewers who are watching and wanting more. What's some of your top parting wisdom that you can share, having gone through 50 years as a human being?
Trust your own inner voice. Don't let anybody else tell you what the truth is or isn't. You know, I think that your heart will guide you, and you'll know the answer. And you know, if you, you know, he is in you. He is in your heart. And so that authority of his guidance, of his being is inside of you. You don't have to look anywhere else outside of you. So don't let anyone else rule your heart. You know, that's a relationship that is sacred, you know, between you and your higher power, your beloved, and, you know, protect that.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Any further thoughts or feelings? Burning desires?
Well, I think it would be a good idea to talk about our story. I think people would, you know, how we met and how things proceeded, because, you know, I think in the, what we might consider an imperfect American tale, like, you know, no one would make a Hollywood movie out of our story. Since Americans like the fairy tale. But, you know, ours is the fairy tale with a twist.
Yeah, that's one way of saying it.
But I think that, you know, the spiritual theme is in it, you know, and the dance, right? So, you know, we don't always just run to our beloved, you know.
Across the field.
We stumble, we doubt, we have these whatever, you know, we suffer and we might, you know, berate him or whatever. But, you know, so, you know, I think our story might be one to, you know, help others understand the nature of that.
I think that's a separate video.
Yeah.
Next episode, our story. Avatar Mer Baba Ki Jai.